When I first started out filmmaking, I loved prime lenses. It's the only thing I ever wanted to use. But after doing a ton of research while building my latest camera package, I decided to switch over to zooms. It just makes sense. You get a lot more bang for your buck. And over the past year and a half, I've been using this zoom and I love it. And that's why in this video, I want to share with you 5 reasons why I think zooms are better than primes. So of course, this argument is pretty subjective and everybody likes different things for different reasons. So be sure to let me know down in the comments which one you prefer. All right, on to number 1. Using a zoom encourages variation and experimentation. If you've got your entire shot all set up, lights, actors, and everything in between ready to go, all you have to do is tweak the zoom a little bit to see what the frame would look like if you pushed in or out just a little tiny bit. And sometimes that's what makes a difference. Oftentimes, if you're on a busy set with a tight deadline, it's gonna take up way too much time to swap out 2, 3, or 4 lenses just for experimentation. Reason number 2, it saves time. Now, this is a no-brainer, but it kind of goes hand in hand with reason number 1. Every time you have to put your rig down and then swap the lens out, it disrupts the workflow of the production. Because a lot of times actors are ready to go and you want to get the shot right away. If an actor is really hot in that moment and you want to get in for a close-up, you don't have to stop everything and then swap out for a longer focal length lens. You can just zoom in and get that shot right away when the actor is ready. Zooms are more efficient in a lot of ways too. For example, in a prime lens, if you have like a 25mm prime, you only get 25mm focal length, right? And with a zoom, you have like with a 25 to 100, you get all of the focal lengths in between. 25mm, 26mm, 27mm, 28mm, all the way up to 100. That's like all of these lenses in one tiny zoom, right? If you had the equivalent of all of those focal lengths in physical space, it would be like a ton of lenses. And that's not to say that you're gonna use every single focal length, but sometimes if you've got a shot lined up and it might be easier just to zoom in like 1 or 2 more millimeters with your focal length, if you've got something hanging down in the background, it's just barely entering the frame that you don't wanna see in your final image, you could just zoom in like 1 or 2 millimeters and it's probably gonna be a lot faster than stopping the entire production, putting the camera down and like walking all the way to the back of the place that you're shooting at and moving, you know, like a light stand or something. Number 3, they're not as fast aperture-wise. Now this might sound kind of like a contradiction, but it's gonna force you to be more cognizant about how you're managing the light in your scene. It's very easy when you're under the gun on a production just to open up the aperture to compensate for lack of light. But then of course that changes the depth of field and the final look of the image. Having a zoom that's slightly slower forces you to think more about where you're placing your lights, how bright they are, and thus planning for the overall look ahead of time, which in the long run tends to look a lot better. I think nowadays too many people are abusing the wide aperture, shallow depth of field look, so I'm pretty happy to see a deeper field of view when a zoom's maximum aperture is higher. Now it is true that not all zooms are created equal. The cinema zoom that I have is a constant aperture and it also does not trombone, which means when you zoom in and out, the physical length of the barrel changes. Some of the zooms out there do those things and that can be a little difficult to work around, especially if it's extra slow like 4 or 5.6, that can be difficult to deal with. But if you invest in a high quality lens and take good care of it, it could last you a very long time and hopefully save more of your time in the long run. Reason number 4, you can do more in different types of camera movement. Obviously, you can zoom in and out during a shot, which is something you can't do with primes. You can make it look kind of like The Office, where you're zooming in and out all the time for comedic effect or for dramatic effect. Or you could do the ever popular dolly zoom. You could also use a subtle zoom in to readjust the frame if something like your actors didn't hit the mark or in order to anticipate things that are happening right in that moment. It may surprise you to find out how often you actually see a zoom in a film. It's just not super noticeable, usually very subtle and very slow for dramatic or comedic emphasis. And reason number 5, the shape of your rig. When I was using my GH3 and a 25mm prime lens, I had to build this kind of like elongated rig and I put extra weight on the back side. And it worked and everything, it was fantastic, but with the zoom you can actually push the center of gravity further back and balance the camera more efficiently on your shoulder, which allows you to be more comfortable during long handheld shoots. Okay, that wraps up today's video. Thanks so much for watching. I hope I was able to provide you with a little bit of insight as to why I love zooms. Be sure to subscribe and follow me on Instagram, and if you like this focus chart over here, you can pick up one for yourself on my Etsy shop. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, light 'em if you got 'em.